This is going to be my personal viability rankings and thoughts on GSCNU right now. This isn't scripted at all. I just wanted to ramble for an extended period of time about what I think of this metagame at the moment. So, of course, here you can see my viability rankings. S is all the good mons, C is all the crap shit, and the top mons are there because of their viability overall, their effect on team building, how splashable they are, all that jargon. So yeah, I have S, A plus, A minus, B plus, B minus, and C. I won't really go over B minus and C plus and C, because that's mostly just crap Pokemon. But everything else I'll give my thoughts on. So why don't we start off with S rank, the top tier. So immediately, probably one of the most noticeable things about my VR is that I have Wheezing in S over Xatu. Now, recently, I've kind of realized, and some other people I think, kind of realized just how fucking good Wheezing is. Like, Wheezing has been top tier ever since it dropped to the tier fucking 4.5 years ago, right? But it's just become so apparent just how good this Pokemon is. Wheezing does so much for you in one team slot. It's a good mixed attacker. It's a physical tank. It can explode. It can use moves like Haze, Pain Split, even Thief. It does a lot for you, and it checks some of the most dangerous Pokemon in the tier. It's the best answer to Primeape, who's really scary outside of Wheezing, and I guess Gloom. It also checks Fearow decently. And Explosion is the best offensive move in the game because it kills basically everything that isn't a normal resist. And as you can see, the normal resist, the first one I have ranked is Graveler, and that's only an A minus. And then Sudowoodo and Pupitar are in B plus. Explosion just is so handy to have, especially since Wheezing is so physically bulky. It helps you check Pokemon like Fearow and a Curse boosted Wigglytuff. And also it counters Primeape, which is really nice. Wheezing is also dangerous offensively because, it has great coverage, has good physical attack and good special attack. Thunder hits the flying types and waters like Octillery and Dugong. Sludge Bomb is just generally your basic attack, and it can also poison ground types like Dugtrio and Graveler. And Wheezing, it just almost always feels like Wheezing is the best last mon on a team because of just how much it does for you in one team slot. Now, I have Wheezing above Xatu and especially Octillery because what it does is completely unique. Xatu's role is somewhat replaceable by Fearow, and Octillery, of course, is replaceable by Dugong. Nothing really replaces Wheezing on a team. Gloom can't match it at all because it doesn't have Explosion. Gloom is more of a defensive Pokemon, whereas Wheezing is just like whatever the fuck you want it to be. You can do a lot of stuff. It's very versatile. Hidden Power Water, Fire Blast, Haze, Pain Split, Thief. I've even seen Rest Talk used and Curse. But most of the time, it's Sludge Bomb, Explosion, Thunder, and a last coverage move. But yeah, Wheezing, incredibly consistent and splashable. Explosion is broken, and Wheezing as a whole, it's so hard to go wrong with it. And I have it above Xatu because there isn't a lot that reliably checks Wheezing, because, Xatu offensively checks it, but it takes a lot from Thunder. And Graveler checks most of the time, but Hidden Power Water completely destroys it, and even Sludge Bomb Poison is annoying. Dugtrio still takes a lot from Sludge Bomb and Hidden Power Water. I hate Sludge Bomb Poison. And probably the best answer is Ninetales, but as you can see, I think Ninetales is really bad. And even then, Explosion, and then like your Magmar or whatever can go crazy without Ninetales in the team. But yeah, Wheezing is the best Pokemon if you ask me. I just can't put it lower than number one. It's just so fucking good. Speaking of oh, by the way, yeah, Hidden Power Water is underrated, especially if Graveler is gonna continue to be all over the place. No, I don't think Wheezing is as splashable as Xatu is, or even Octillery, But like I think it's overall just a more viable Pokemon than anything else in the tier. And Weezing is still incredibly splashable. Whew. So moving on from Weezing, we have the bird, the psychic bird to be correct, Xatu. Xatu has been considered the best Pokemon in the tier since 2020. And yeah, it's still Xatu. It does whatever it wants. It's really fast, it's pretty strong, psychic, crits and split F drops, really scary. It offensively checks Weezing, which is amazing, and it also checks Kingler, who was otherwise really scary. I think the thing that makes Xatu so good is that almost every time it comes in, it makes some sort of progress. Like, even if it doesn't KO something, it often forces something else, like rest or something, or just big chip damage on a Wigglytuff or whatever. Yeah, Xatu, it checks Gloom, Hitmonlee, Kingler, all those guys. And it's just pretty strong. It's like a universal revenge killer, nearly. Like, the only things that really counter Xatu are Dugong and Houndour. And even Dugong is like slower, and it still takes a bit from Psychic. Yeah, Xatu is just so splashable as an offensive Psychic type and revenge killer. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about Xatu. I think Hidden Power Electric is better on most teams, but of course, when you're using it with like Chinchou or something, I think Ice is better because of the better Dugtrio matchup. Jesus Christ, can I speak? I don't think any of the non-rest sets are very good at all because without rest talk, you just get worn down too much, and you can't absorb status from Pokemon like Gloom anymore. So yeah, just stick to Psychic, Hidden Power Ice, or Electric, depending on the team, and go to town. Xatu is very good, and you all know why if you watched some of my videos. Moving on to Octillery. Now, Octillery, I think, has probably the biggest effect on team building out of anything in the tier. Because this thing, recently we've seen a lot of rest talk on a lot of mods that traditionally don't use it. Mostly to have better longevity against things like Octillery, you know. Rest Talk Stellar has become a lot more popular recently, and Rest Talk Persian and even Primeape have started being used. But yeah, Octillery, it's a amazing tank. It checks Xatu, Dugtrio, who else? Magmar, Graveler, Sudowoodo, Pupitar even, and Ninetales. Even Rapidash, because Rapidash is bad. But yeah, Octillery is also incredibly strong offensively. There's very few Pokemon that want to switch into this thing. And even then, some of those checks, aside from Chinchou, nothing beats every Octillery set. Because even Dugong can get fucked by crits. And like, it doesn't actually hurt Octillery back unless it freezes it. Yeah, Octillery is very splashable too. Because it's just so easy to slap. It's very hard to punish Octillery unless you use Pokemon like Stantler or Chinchou. Because of how strong it is. Like, it hits like a freight train. It has the highest special attack set in the whole tier, and it's a staple on offensive teams. I think one of Octillery or Dugong is mandatory on most teams, and of the two, I think Octillery fits onto more teams because it doesn't have some of the additional flaws that Dugong has, like, you know, the fighting weakness and rock weakness and all that, and also it hits a lot harder with Surf. But yeah, Octillery is very splashable, fits onto almost every team style, and it's very consistent. I have these three in S because Weezing is because it's the most viable Pokemon overall. Xatu is the most splashable, and Octillery is the most influential. That's why I have all three in here. I think Weezing is overall the best one, but I can see arguments for Xatu being number one. I mean, Xatu was number one on my VR for like 3 years straight. I can't really see Octillery number one because of Dugong primarily, because Dugong can do what it does pretty well. So moving down from S to A+, I have 5 Pokemon in here. So the first Pokemon in A+, is the deer, Statler. Statler is the most broken Pokemon in GSCNU right now. That is because it kills everything. Curse Light Screen does not have any defensive counterplay besides Shuckle of all Pokemon. And as you can see, I put Shuckle in B-. And aside from that, nothing is safe against Snatler. It can fucking destroy everything, really. But honestly, I haven't been using Cursed Light Screen that much. I've primarily been using Rest Talk. Now, Rest Talk was the old standard on Statler in like 2020, but eventually Cursed Light Screen became the most popular set. But recently, I've been using Rest Talk, and it's really like it's amazing because it's just so scary to balance teams. Like the Graveler Gloom teams are really bad against it because with Rest Talk you have better longevity against Pokemon like Chinchou, Porygon, Dugong, Octillery. It's not a perfect counter, but it's still a pretty good answer to some of them. And with Rest Talk, you're just a really good battering ram with very few answers because normal plus ground coverage, let's be real, is broken in Gen 2, aside from in OU. Because on lower tiers especially, it's just really scary to do it normal plus ground coverage. And Stanler has very high attack. It's pretty fast. A stab earthquake for all the rock types and Magnemite. And Curse Light Screen is of course still incredibly good because it just destroys everything. It's really good at punishing the water types, Octillery and Dugong, even Chinchou, because you just set up Light Screen, you set up Curse, and then you go to town. But yeah, Statler is probably the scariest late game cleaner in the tier. I don't think there's anything better at cleaning up a weakened team than Statler. Whew, yeah, I think honestly, I would not oppose a Statler ban because this Pokemon is complete nonsense. Statler is just way too scary because it just it does not have any defensive counterplay. Like it's just too fucking scary. Oh! About Octillery, Hidden Power Electric is better than Ice Beam is. I think Ice Beam is bad except on specific teams. Like if you're using it with Chinchou, you want Ice Beam. But other than that, Hidden Power Electric is better because you don't want to give opposing Octillery free turns. Same with Dugong. And you can handle Dugtrio in other ways. Just play better. Or whatever. But yeah, back to Statler. I think everything that isn't Curse Light Screen or Rest Talk is not very good. And only, like, what else are you going to run? Reflect Light Screen? Like a supporting set and Baton Bass? That just sounds kind of bad. But yeah. Statler, it's one of the best Pokemon in the tier. I would not oppose banning Statler, like, at all. Because this thing is way too scary. And I've had many games that were ended by Statler being nonsensical. Yeah. Moving on from Statler to Pineco. Now, Pineco, bit of a weird case here because Pineco is usually the second most used Pokemon in tournaments, but I only have it at number 5. And that's because, well, Pineco does have the second best move in Gen 2, that being Spikes, as well as Explosion. It's a Pineco. It's got really, really bad stats and no real way to damage opponents outside of killing itself. Yeah, Pineco spikes are just so good that I can't put anywhere lower than number 5. Pineco is able to come in on Pokemon like Wigglytuff, Dugtrio, Primeape, and set up the spikes. One thing I've noticed recently is that Rapid Spin Pineco has been being used more in games. Like, not just in the team builder, but more in games. I've seen people rapid spinning with Pineco rather than setting up spikes in like a situation where they have an opportunity to set up spikes because rapid spin is really good in this tier because Pokemon like Xatu, Fearow, and Statler are broken when spikes are up. And rapid spin, you alleviate pressure. Also, I think Reflect Pineco kind of sucks now because you want something for Graveler, whether it's Toxic or, I don't know, Hidden Power Water or Giga Drain, something like that. I think you want one of those for Graveler, especially if it continues to be popular. Yeah, Pineco, Spike's Pineco offenses are probably the best thing you can run. Realistically, it's just so consistent and so reliable. And it doesn't have very many bad matchups, especially with Pokemon like Restock, Wigglytuff, or Statler even. Yeah, Pineco, it's a bad Pokemon on its own, but spikes are broken, so it remains at number 5. I think it's been proven that you can drop Pineco a lot of the time though, because recently with those Graveler Gloom teams, most of them don't have spikes, and the Rise of Graveler isn't very good for Pineco because it can't really do much to it, unless it decides to run a hidden power, a super effective hidden power that is. Yeah, a few months ago I would have put Pineco at number 3, but I don't agree with that at all right now. Moving on to moles, Dugtrio. Dugtrio is one of the best offensive Pokemon in the tier because it outspeeds literally everything. Unless you use agility, you are not outspeeding Dugtrio. And of course, ground stab is amazing because it hits Weezing, Magmar, Flareon, Graveler, all those guys, and has Rock Slide for flying types like Xatu, Fearow, fucking Noctowl too, whatever. And with Screech, it poses a big offensive threat, and it's a good revenge killer because of its speed and reasonably strong Earthquake. It's a perfect package for an offensive Pokemon. Now, I think building a Dugtrio can sometimes be a bit awkward because Dugtrio isn't very good against the water types in Octillery and Dugtrio. I mean, it can break them for sure, but it's not really reliable at doing it. Screech does help, but it's still like you need a bad sleep talk roll from your opponent. And Dugtrio still gets checked by Pokemon like Wigglytuff and Kingler. But aside from that, it's probably the best offensive partner for Xatu. And there's also Swagger Dugtrio, of course. Now, fun fact, Swagger is actually being proposed to be banned as of recently because of Dugtrio primarily, and also Persian, who we will get to soon. Yeah. Dugtrio is an offensive staple for a reason. It's one of the most bullshit Pokemon, like bullshit inducing Pokemon in the tier. I don't think it's broken at all. I think arguments that say it's broken are bad, but it's still very good. And I have it at 6 for a reason. Next, we have the other top tier bird, Fearow. Now, Fearow is like Xatu, but physical. Because unlike Xatu, it's a normal type, and it does similar things. It runs Rest Hawk with Double Edge, Drill Pick, Rest Hawk, yeah. It's quite a bit stronger than Xatu is, though, because its physical attack is higher than Xatu's special attack, and it's also a bit faster. Unlike Xatu, it's 100 speed, so it outspeeds Xatu. It doesn't have to speed tie Xatu, like opposing Xatu would with Xatu. My brain just fired. And it also is guaranteed to outspeed Primeape. And I guess it also outspeeds Raticate. And yeah, Fearow is the ultimate clicker Pokemon because Double Edge is very spammable because not every team runs a rock type. When using Fearow, you want to run lures for said rock types, so Hidden Power Water Pineco, Hidden Power Water Weezing, Earthquake Statler. They're good at chipping down the rock type, so Fearow can go crazy. Once you get rid of a rock type, Fearow is almost impossible to stop. And yeah. I don't think it's as good as Xatu is though, because there is more ways to reliably be Fearow than Xatu, because the only way to reliably be Xatu are Dugong and Houndour, but Fearow has to worry about Graveler, Sudowoodo, and Dugong. Not Dugong, Pupitar. Those Pokemon are generally worse to let in, and also Curse means that Fearow isn't as good as a revenge killer, in my opinion. But Fearow is still incredibly dangerous, and I have it at 7 for a reason. Fearow offenses are really good, really consistent, and it's not a bad pick on a Xatu Dugtrio offenses. It's also the face of normal spam teams for a reason, and I think set teams are pretty good. I don't think you should deviate from Double Edge Drill Peck Rest Talk, though. I think Hidden Power Ground is kind of bad, because it gives you bad sleep talk pulls against opposing Xatu and Fearow. And Hidden Power Ground doesn't do that much to the rock types, and it doesn't do shit to Weezing. But yeah, Fearow's really good. Moving on to Dugong. Now, Dugong is I actually made a video on Dugong. Now, I'm recording this on Monday, the 12th of June, I think? Yeah, I'm recording on that day, and I made a video on Dugong last night. Now, Dugong is like the counterpart of Octillery. Its special attack stat is a lot lower, and it has an ice typing that kind of gimps it defensively in some areas, but it's also a lot bulkier, a lot faster, and has a stronger ice beam because it has stab on its ice beam. Dugong is the most consistent check to Xatu, and in my opinion, it's better against Dugtrio than Octillery is. It also checks Pokemon like who else does it check? It checks Ninetales. It checks Graveler pretty well, even though it's weak to Rock because Graveler doesn't want to stay in at all. And it checks Gloom, good too. It's generally annoying to switch into because its stab combination is really good, better opposing water types. And it has reasonable special attack. It can also freeze everything that isn't opposing Dugong and the very rare Sneasel. Oh, by the way, speaking of Sneasel, I think Sneasel is a C tier Pokemon, but I forgot to rank it, and I'm not arsed to go back and change my VR, so just pretend Sneasel is there beside Poliwhirl. So yeah, Dugong is very splashable. I think, as I said, I think one of Dugong or Octillery is mandatory on every team. And Dugong isn't as easy to fit, in my opinion, because of its added weaknesses. It's worse against fire types, Primeape, and who else? Rock types, yeah. But it's still good. It fits more to like balanced teams, in my opinion, because of its better Xatu matchup. Yeah, I think. Oh yeah, it's also the best recipient of growth from Flareon by far, because like just one growth boost turns it into a monster, and it's really tanky, especially when it has Protect to passively heal with leftovers. It's really good in growth pass teams. I think Encore sets aren't very good because they have much worse longevity and they can't absorb status like Rest Talk sets can, but I guess they're alright on certain teams. If you're really weak to Sap Sweepers like Statner and Kingler, yeah, I'd consider them. But yeah, I don't think it's as good as Octillery overall, and I think Octillery is better on a majority of teams. Not to say Dugong's bad, because if it was bad, why would it be in the A plus rank? But I have it at the bottom of A plus rank for a reason. You really feel the lower power when you're fighting Pokemon like Wigglytuff. Speaking of Wigglytuff, I have it in A-tier. I only have 3 Pokemon in A-tier, those being Persian, Primeape, and Wigglytuff. Let's start off with the cat. Now, Persian is a pretty interesting Pokemon historically because it wasn't really used until 2021, but now it's like all over the place. Now, what Persian does is it abuses its lightning fast speed. Persian outspeeds everything that isn't Dugtrio. And it has broken ass normal slab. Normal slab is really good in this tier because there's not a lot of rock types and there's only one steel type. Persian also has a great move pool. It has Hypnosis, has Screech, has Thunder, has Thief. It has really good moves for an offensive fast normal type. It's probably the best lead in the tier because with Hypnosis, it's almost impossible to counter lead it unless you want to use crap like Miracle Berry Pineco with spikes and an explosion. And Persian has been used more in the back instead of as a lead recently because it's a really good late game cleaner because of its speed, and it's pretty strong because it doesn't have the highest physical attack, but has strong high base power stab move and double edge, which makes it a very good revenge killer like Fearow is, and very good late game cleaner. With Hypnosis, it can shut down Pokemon like Weezing, Primeape, Sudowoodo, Graveler, and with Thief, it can cripple a wall like Octillery if they go into it. Persian is one of the most difficult Pokemon to consistently counter because of Hypnosis, and also Rest Hawk Persian is pretty underrated. It's not as good as Rest Hawk Statler on most teams, but the fact that it's faster than Xatu and Fearow, unlike Statler, is a huge upside and has Thunder to hit to pressure water types. Restock's Persian is pretty decent in my opinion. Persian offenses are some of my favourite teams to run because Persian is really good at keeping up momentum with its fast Hypnosis, Thief, and strong Double Edge. Also, swagger sets are, of course, ridiculous, like Dugtrio for the same reasons, because Persian is really fast, and with swagger psych up, it poses a huge offensive threat because it can swagger the opponent, then click psych up, and now Persian has plus 2 attack, and plus 2 attack Persian is a huge threat. I don't have Persian in A+, primarily because it can sometimes lack power in my opinion. Hypnosis is also kind of a shitty move, and I've had many games where Persian did very little because it decided to miss all its hypnosis. And also in the back, I think it faces some competition from Fearow and what's his name, Statler, but it's still absolutely incredible. It's the secondary face of normal spam behind Fearow, and both of them can be paired together with good results. Moving on from Persian to Primeape. Now, Primeape is one of the most dangerous offensive Pokemon in the entire metagame. But it has one little thing that kind of sours it. There's one thing that keeps Primeape from being an A+, and that is all of its moves, besides Double Edge, are kind of inaccurate. Now, Cross Chop is 80% accurate, and Thunder is 70% accurate. If you ignore that, though, Primeape is like almost impossible to stop. It shits on all the normal types with its stab fighting moves, and it has Thunder to 2 KO Xatu and Fearow. Thunder also, I actually don't find Wheezing to be that good a reliable long term check. I mean, it's probably the best answer still, and it's a good check, but long term, I don't think it's that amazing because Thunder Paralysis, especially, if you get paralyzed by Thunder, you have to boom earlier, I find, because now your Wheezing is slower than a lot of crap. But yeah, Primeape also threatens the rock types and crap like Porygon, etc. I think Meditate sets are kind of crap. I just prefer the immediate power of Cross Chop, Thunder, Double Edge, Substitute. Some people have Primeape really low because of its inaccurate moves, but I think that's bullshit, and just get over it. It's not that big of a deal, really. And of course, what you have other than that is one of the scariest offensive Pokemon. It doesn't provide that much defensive utility, though. But that's fine because it has incredible offensive potential. And Primeape offenses are very good, and in my opinion, they are reliable, and I like them a lot. Primeape probably has the single highest ceiling of any Pokemon in the entire metagame, because when it hits all its moves, and like it gets like the Thunder Paralysis on Wheezing, it's a freaking monster. Like, it's absolutely incredible. But of course, it can also just miss all of its moves and die. But aside from that, Primeape rocks, and you should use it more. I don't have much to say about Primeape, really. It's just a good offensive Pokemon. Where moves are crap, but it's alright. Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff. Now, Wigglytuff, I think, is pretty overrated. I mean, I still have it pretty high, but I don't think it's like an A+, which I've seen some people do. I even considered putting it in at the top of A-, but I was a bit nicer to it. Wigglytuff, some people think Wigglytuff is broken, and I still think that's bullshit because it just gets attacked too much, and there's so reliable answers to it. Like, Wheezing annoys with Explosion, so does Pineco. Pineco can also set up on it. And of course, Rock types, and even crap like Hitmonlee and Primeape can also threaten it. And also, Octillery and Xatu both do quite a lot to it, and they ignore its cursed defense boosts. The thing with Wigglytuff is that I don't really find it has a huge defensive niche. It could just kind of decently checks a few mons, like Xatu and Dugtrio, but I can still lose to them because it takes spikes damage, and it still takes a decent amount from their attacks. I don't like Wigglytuff as some other people do. The fact that it has no useful resistances, is one of the slowest Pokemon in the tier, takes spikes damage, and doesn't have like God tier bulk, is pretty annoying. It's still Wigglytuff, it can still bullshit games, and it still is pretty good. Like, it helps a lot against Pokemon like Chinchou, But aside from that, I don't really like it that much. I put it pretty high, but that's mostly for status quo. And I think it's better than everything else, really, because I don't like it much myself. I can definitely see why others like it, though, but it's not for me, personally. Moving down from Wigglytuff to Kingler. Now, Kingler has insane offensive potential, but it's kind of held back by Zawtoo. Zawtoo is really annoying for Kingler because it outspeeds it, survives any boosted hit that isn't Hidden Power Rock, and it 2 kills it, especially with Hidden Power Electric. If it's running Hidden Power Electric, then it has guaranteed good Sleep Talk pulls against Kingler, which is really annoying. Aside from Zawtoo, Kingler really wants to preserve its HP, and it doesn't like Thunder Wheezing, Hidden Power Electric Octillery, and it still gets outsped by Pokemon like Statler, Dugtrio, Fearow, Persian, Primeape, etc. But it does have the amazing niche of setting up on Ice Beam Dugong and Ice Beam Octillery, and it's also incredibly scary. It's one of the scariest Pokemon when paired with Houndour, and it's really scary for balanced teams, I find. Oh. Two things I forgot to mention about Wigglytuff. It's not an Octillery check. Please stop using it as one. This is a bad idea, and if you do it, you will get punished for it. Stop using Wigglytuff as your only Octillery check. Oh, and by the way, uh, all curse sets are kind of mediocre in my opinion. I don't know, they just don't have the same potential as Curse does. Anyway, back to Kingler. The best set is still probably a SD substitute with Hidden Power Ground, and Frustration I think is the best normal stab. I don't like Double Edge because the recoil is really fucking annoying. But Hidden Power Rock Kingler is actually pretty good because Hidden Power Rock, it OHKO Zawtoo. Hidden Power Rock Kingler is actually pretty good at luring in Zawtoo and KOing it. And you still have Hidden Power Rock for like fire types. Dropping Hidden Power Ground is kind of mediocre, but you can run Stab Surf for ground and rock types anyway. The worst trade off is being worse against Wheezing. But Wheezing, it's prone to getting worn down, and among other shit. Yeah. Kingler, it's not as bad as some people say. It still has a lot of offensive potential, but it's held back by Zawtoo, and it's meager speed. If it was like Statler speed, I'd probably like it a bit more. Actually, no, it doesn't really outspeed anything. Well, I guess it outspeeds Arbok now. But yeah, Kingler, I really like it still, but I don't like it as much as I used to. Like around a year ago, I would have put it in A plus for sure. Maybe Rest Talk sets with fucking Double Edge and Surf or whatever, alright, but not having SD sounds pretty garbage if you ask me. But yeah. Kingler has flaws, but it has incredible offensive potential at the same time. Next, Chinchou. Chinchou is the anti-metagame Pokemon. It has pretty bad stats all around, but with its typing, it completely counters Octillery and Dugong. It's the best counter to Octillery because, unlike other waters, it isn't weak to Hidden Power Electric and has Stab Thunder to Akawa. It also shits on Dugong as well. Chinchou does actually have a pretty annoying stab combination because offensive electric types are incredibly scary in this metagame. Like, they are really hard to deal with. But Chinchou is kind of let down in that regard because it doesn't have that good of a special attack stat. Like, Magnemite is really difficult to switch into, but Chinchou is a lot easier too. You can handle Chinchou pretty easy with Pokemon like Wigglytuff, Gloom, Hitmonlee, Restalk Statler, Restalk Persian, and so on. I think Dugtrio's Zawtoo offenses do really hate this thing though, unless they have a Sleep Talk normal, or for whatever reason they're running Gloom. I think Chinchou teams are the best teams to use Ice Beam Octillery on, because with Ice Beam Octillery, it's like Dugong, but it has a better matchup against fire types and rock types as well. Chinchou, its stats do let it down quite a lot though, because it's physically frail. Its special defenses make is pretty bad. Or not pretty bad, it's just mediocre, so it's not really a good check to Xatu and crap. Yeah. There's a lot of ways to check Chinchou, but countering Octillery is such a useful niche. It's so useful that I can't put it lower than a A-. Because Octillery is really freaking common. And a poke like Octillery and Dugong, one of them is on close to every team. And having a Pokemon that completely counters them and uses them as an offensive opportunity, it makes up for the bad stats. Graveler is pretty good. I didn't really use Graveler much until recently, but it has proven itself recently because Graveler balance teams are pretty good. Graveler, I think, is the best rock type. I don't like Sudowoodo very much right now because Graveler has Rapid Spin, which is amazing in this tier. It's a Rapid Spinner that craps on Pineco unless Pineco uses a specifically for Graveler, like Hidden Power Water or Toxic. Graveler also counters Fearow. It counters non-Hidden Power Water Wheezing as well. And it's actually pretty annoying to switch into. Octillery takes a lot from Earthquake, even though it's slower. And also Hidden Power Rock hits Xatu, Fearow, Dugong, and all that kind of crap. Basically, a normal resist that rapid spins is a great niche. It's one of the best partners for Gloom, if not the best, because Gloom counters checks Pokemon that Graveler sucks against, like Octillery, Hidden Power Electric sets, and Primeape. Graveler is pretty slow and doesn't have the best special defense, and I still think it's kind of awkward to fit on some teams, but the teams that Graveler specifically fits on are really good. Also has Explosion, which is the best offensive move in the entire game. And Graveler threatens all the Normalizes pretty well with its Earthquake. Yeah. What else about Graveler? Let me think. Don't really have much to say about it. Graveler Gloom teams are really good. They are really consistent, and I actually feel they're pretty versatile in what slots you can run on them. Like you can run Houndour, Kingler, Primeape, a lot of crap on those teams. Speaking of Graveler Gloom teams, let's get to the other half of that coin. Gloom used to be one of the best Pokemon in the metagame, but it fell off in 2022. But now it's like seeing a resurgence. Gloom is kind of like Chinchou. It doesn't have the best stats, but it has some useful anti-metagame traits. First off, it counters a Hidden Power Electric Octillery, which is of course amazing. Gloom is also one of the best answers to Primeape, and it has Paralysis. Paralysis is of course great. It's great at supporting Pokemon like Kingler and Statler. And yeah, there's not much to say about Gloom that I haven't already said. It's really good alongside Graveler, and it counters Hidden Power Electric Octillery. I already said that. And Paralysis means that non-Rest Hog users don't really want to abuse it much. And even like Rest Hog Xatu and Fearow, they still have to rest now. And if you keep them at 100%, they can't rest. So now you can abuse that with Kingler and such. Gloom has flaws. It's not very good against Xatu and Fearow, and it's kinda passive as well. I think Razor Leaf is is a really good option on it because with Razor Leaf it destroys Graveler, it hits Dugtrio hard, and it puts more immediate pressure on Waters. You want Sludge Bomb, of course, and also Moonlight and Stun Spore as well. I don't think you should deviate from that much. I've seen Hidden Power Fire used actually, but I don't know. I only saw it in one game, so I can't really comment on it. Gloom doesn't counter that much, but the Pokemon it does counter, Primeape and Electillery, that's what we'll call it. It also counters Chinchou as well, which is pretty nice. But yeah, Gloom, it doesn't counter that much, but the stuff it does counter are pretty important targets, especially for Graveler Gloom teams. And Paralysis support is good. Gloom, again, it's not as bad as some people say. I mean, I thought it was pretty bad, but after using it a bit more recently, yeah, I've come around to it somewhat. Gloom is decent, and it gets my approval. Next up, we have two offensive fire types. The fire types that I think are the two best in the metagame. Magmar. I hate Magmar, but I have to put it in A minus. I don't know. I just don't know what Magmar. I am complete garbage at using Magmar. Every time I use Magmar, I just lose. Like, I cannot use this Pokemon effectively. However, when people use Magmar against me, I get destroyed by it. So this has led me to hate Magmar. I can't use it effectively myself, but my opponents can. I just don't even know what there is wrong with Magmar. I just cannot use it effectively. Maybe I'm just crap. But yeah, Magmar, it's a good balance breaker with it has a really high special attack stat and fantastic coverage. It does have a lot of flaws though. Fire is not really a good typing in this tier because Octillery and Dugtrio are all over the place, and Magmar is also pretty frail physically, so it doesn't have that many good opportunities to come in and actually fire off its attacks. But it has extremely high offensive potential. I think Sunny Day sets are probably the best because with Sunny Day you weaken Octillery Surf and also boost the power of your Fire Blast. Fire Blast and Thunder Punch are undroppable, and I think Cross Chop is the best third move because it puts the most pressure on normal types, especially when you crit and just destroy them. Magmar can be kind of awkward to fit because of its weaknesses, and it doesn't really provide that much defensive utility in this metagame. But its offensive potential is incredible. I don't know what's wrong with me and Magmar. I just can't use it effectively. What else is there to say about Magmar? It's a good balance breaker. It's good at breaking Graveler Gloom teams, as well as just slower crap, unless you have something like Ninetales. If I wasn't so bad at using Magmar, I would probably put it at the top of A minus. But as it stands, I am not good at JCNU. Ignore the fact that I'm like really good at it. Flareon is pretty cool. It has the highest base stat total in the entire metagame, but it doesn't really have the best typing, and it's pretty frail on the physical side. That being said, Growth Pass Flareon is really good. It's the face of Growth Pass teams because, well, it's the only reason they exist. Dugong, when past growth, is broken, and so is Xatu. Let's be real. Xatu with Growth Pass is also really good. I should have mentioned that earlier. Flareon with growth is actually a pretty scary wall breaker because nothing really wants to switch into it unless it's like Roar Ninetales. And of course, it can just pass out to Dugong or whatever. It helps that it has defensive synergy with Dugong. That's mixed sets are also pretty good because it has a really powerful double edge. It has the highest attack stat. It's tied with Kingler for the highest attack stat in the whole metagame. And it's double edged 3 KO's Octillery, and it's faster than it. So the Octopus is not really a good check to this set. And you can run moves like a Shadow Ball is a guaranteed 2 KO on Xatu because Fire Blast accuracy is balls. And also it has great special defense, so it's a decent check to Xatu overall. That being said, it is pretty slow, it's physically frail, it's weak to ground, and yeah, it's also weak to water. It has problems, but it's a good offensive Pokemon. I think non-growth sets should be explored more. Mix sets are pretty underrated in the current metagame. Like, there's a lot you can do with them. You can run fucking Roar on them if you want. Also, Rest Talk Flareon is... it's fine. It exists. It's like a less passive and garbage, let's just say, version of Ninetales. But unlike Ninetales, it can check wheezing, so bleh, it's whatever. Flareon is alright, but it's kind of hard to fit on teams. It's like Magmar, but I think I value Magmar more because of its higher speed and Thunder Punch. So that's the A ranks. Yeah. A ranks are complete. The fire types ended it off. Now time for the B plus Pokemon. Sudowoodo I don't really like much in the current metagame. I think Graveler is generally better than it, or even Pupitar. Because Sudowoodo is slow, its typing leaves with weaknesses to water and ground, and also fighting as well. And it can't really hurt Octillery that much, unless it explodes. And of course, if you explode, now you're worse off against normal types. But the lack of a 4 times weakness to water or grass is a nice advantage over Graveler. I just think that Graveler or Pupitar are better on most teams. Because they are more dangerous offensively. Sudowoodo wasn't bad, but I don't really like it that much. It's whatever. It's also really slow, and its typing leaves it with weaknesses, as I said. It also doesn't have the best special defense in the world. It's not bad, but I don't really like it that much right now. It's good at luring in and KOing Octillery with self-destruct, I mean. But beyond that, I don't really like it that much. Not bad, but not great. Porygon is not as good as people think it is because it's Pineco fodder. It's pretty bad against Sleep Talk normals, unless it runs Curse. And it doesn't like status at all. It's a kind of a crit magnet from my experience. I think Curse sets are probably the best set because they have the most offensive potential and are the best sets against Sleep Talk normals, but they still have their own problems going on. Recover is the best move in Gen 2, and Porygon is the only, let's face it, user you will see, because even though Corsola is viable, in quotes, you will not see it in an actual game, unless you're playing one person. But Porygon has Thunder Wave. Thief sets are bad, don't use them. Use Thunder Wave because you want to paralyze crap. And Thief is actually a pretty overrated move in Gen 2. Don't at me, but Thunder Wave is way better. Bulk Beam sets they're alright, but they really suck against Sleep Talk normal types. Porygon, it has advantages over other normal types, but I generally prefer them because they are more dangerous consistently. And Porygon stats, it has an amazing move pool. Like its move pool is one of the best things you could ask for, but it's let down by its stats, among other bullshit going on. Hitmonlee is a pretty flawed Pokemon. If you just look at the viability rankings, just look at the top 2 Pokemon, Weezing and Xatu. Hitmonlee really sucks against those, and it can kind of give Pineco free entry. I think Hidden Power Rock is the best set because it does a lot to Xatu, but Body Slam is also really good because it can paralyze crap like Pineco and Weezing and Gloom. Hitmonlee, it's used as a rest talker in this tier, bizarrely enough, because it has good special defense. It's good at switching into Pokemon like Octillery, Dugong, Chinchou, and I guess, I can't really switch into Flareon. It can switch into Ninetales just fine. And it uses its high attack stat, stab, high jump kick, to threaten normal types. Offensive sets are generally outclassed by Primeape, but the rest talk sets are their own beast, and they're usable, I guess. I don't really like Hitmonlee because it sucks so much against Weezing and Xatu, as well as Pineco to an extent, and it's also physically frail, and it gets sped by quite a lot of offensive Pokemon. But if you support Hitmonlee well enough, it's alright. Pupitar is underrated in the current metagame. Pupitar was forgotten about for a while, but after my Pupitar video in February or January, I don't remember, but yeah, it was earlier on in the year, Pupitar has been seeing some usage again. Pupitar is a lot faster than Graveler is. Unlike Graveler, it outspeeds Octillery and it 3 KOs it with Earthquake. Pupitar has a great stab combination. It has Rock Stab for flying types, and Earthquake is good for rock types, and shit like fire types as well. With Screech, it can pose a bigger offensive threat. With Screech, it actually breaks through Curse Wigglytuff, which is nice. And yeah, Graveler, or not Graveler, Pupitar, it's just pretty threatening. It does have longevity issues, and it can face competition from Graveler, and even Sudowoodo, but it has its own unique offensive niche. With Ancient Power, it can fish for Ancient Power boosts, the Omni boost, and if it gets that, it's now a lot more powerful. It's not the best thing in the world, but it's a fine offensive Pokemon and has some defensive utility. It counters Fearow, and it can check Cursed Wigglytuff with Screech sets. Also resists Explosion. It shits on some certain teams. Like Chinchou teams can struggle against it. Or rather, like, I have this one Sneasel team. Yeah, it's Sneasel. And it actually, like, loses to Pupitar on the spot. It's pretty funny. But yeah, it also counters a non-hidden power water wheezing, which is nice. Oh, time for the fucking fire types. I fucking hate Ninetales. Rapidash is not good. It is bad because it is bad against Octillery, and it is also flawed beyond that. It gets ravaged by Dugtrio. Unlike Ninetales, it can check wheezing, and it faces competition from Persian as a fucking rest talk user. But I want to talk about Ninetales first. I think Ninetales is complete and utter garbage because it is so bad against Octillery. It is not good against Octillery at all. Octillery completely counters it, and it abuses it as an offensive opportunity. It also gets countered by Chinchou. It gets ravaged by Dugtrio like Rapidash. It's not great against Dugong, and its passivity can be abused by Pokemon like Statler. To use Ninetales, you really have to prepare for Octillery, so you have to use Pokemon like Gloom or Chinchou, but that just leaves you more open to Pokemon like Dugtrio. Ninetales is not good, and the defensive utility it provides, beyond checking wheezing, is not useful. Fuck Ninetales, I hate this Pokemon. But yeah, it sucks, don't use it. Rapidash is probably better because it can actually pressure Octillery more with Double Edge, but unlike Ninetales, it can check wheezing, and it's worse against Pokemon like Xatu, so it's still not good at all, in my opinion. Rapidash is better, but it's like comparing shit to piss. They both suck. Another fire type, actually, Houndour dropping down to B. Houndour is not very good. I think it has... Bleh, calm the fuck down, Don. Houndour completely walls Xatu, and it pursues it. And that's basically it. It poses somewhat of an offensive threat with Sunny Beam sets, but it's really slow. Its stats are horrible. Like, they are really bad. It's also weak to water and ground. Yeah, Houndour. I think most Houndour teams are bad, personally. They have a lot of flaws defensively. And Houndour itself is just such a bad Pokemon instead of Xatu. Like, it kills Xatu, and that's basically it. It doesn't do anything beyond that. It's really not good. And the teams with it, I'm not a fan of. Dunsparce is generally outclassed by Wigglytuff because Dunsparce and Wigglytuff are almost identical stat-wise. But Wigglytuff has a better move pool, so it's a better Pokemon. Dunsparce is slightly bulkier on the physical side, but Wigglytuff has a better move pool, as I mentioned. So it's typically better. I think if you're using Return Wigglytuff, you're actually better off using Dunsparce. But aside from that, like if you're using Double Edge or Body Slam, well, Dunsparce can't use either of them. But yeah, outside of that, Dunsparce is generally outclassed by Wigglytuff. Glare sets are bad because Glare is a garbage move, and you drop Sleep Talk, which is kind of bad as well. Just use Frustration, Curse, Rest Talk. It's the best set. Magnemite, I fucking hate this Pokemon. Magnemite feels like a bad check to the Pokemon that it's supposed to check. Its stats mean it's not a great check to Dugtrio or Fearow, and it has prediction issues. Like, it has to predict Dugtrio with Hidden Power Ice and the switch in. And like, it's really complicated doing that, especially when it's paired with a fire type who you want to use Thunder against. But yeah, the stats really let it down. I find Magnemite is forced to rest so often, and when it's resting, it's at the mercy of Sleep Talk. If it actually like Hidden Power Ice's Dugtrio on the switch in. I don't know. I just think it's really inconsistent despite its high offensive ceiling, and I really don't like it at all. What else about what else? I've been fucking ranting for like 50 minutes now. I don't even know what to say anymore. But yeah, its stats just let it down. Also, Thunder can miss, and that's really annoying too. And it still hits like a truck, and it answers some Pokemon, but there's just too much that stops it from being like actually good, in my opinion. The ground weakness sucks. The fire weakness sucks. The fighting weakness sucks. It just sucks. Its bulk is not good. It doesn't actually check the Pokemon it's supposed to check long term, especially when spikes are up. It's prediction aligned. Blah. I hate Magnemite, and I don't use it very much anymore. Dragonair is the last mon I would like actually give a serious analysis to, because B plus and C must all just, run through quickly, because what do you want me to say about them? Dragonair is not very good. It has screens and Thunderwave, but it's just not good at dealing damage, and has like, I just don't know what to say about Dragonair. It's just not good in my opinion. It only fits onto like weird growth pass teams or fucking baton pass or whatever as a screen's Thunderwave user, and that's nice and all, but it sucks at dealing damage because it can only fit one attacking move, and that's usually Fire Blast, which is what you want because it hits Pineco and stuff. But it just lets some stuff in my opinion. And it's, I don't know, a Dragonair. I could probably put Dragonair in B minus. I don't really like it that much. It's kind of bad if you ask me. And here we are at B minus. Mine. Alright, oh yeah, Dragonair hates Sass, by the way, which is ironic because it uses Thunderwave. Yeah, B minus. I can't even see some of these. Right, Raticate. Raticate, I'm actually going to do a video on Raticate next week. Spoiler alert, but Raticate is a very niche offensive pick on normal spam teams as the third normal, because it's pretty fast, it's pretty strong, and normal stab is broken. Still very niche and outclassed by other picks outside of that though. Shuckle, Bayleaf, and Lickitung are all stall Pokemon, so is Mantine. Stall is pretty niche in the tier, so, and they only fit into that style really, so I put them here. Bayleaf, you can try it on offensive teams, but meh, I don't know, I've been ranting for too long at this point. I actually can't think anymore, but yeah. Shuckle, Bayleaf, Lickitung, Mantine are all stall Pokemon. Mantine is lower than them because it isn't even guaranteed on stall, which is pretty disappointing, but yeah. Execute is like Magnemite in the fact that it has good traits, but its stats let it down. Because it has a great move pool, good typing, but its stats just really let it down. And grass types are flawed to begin with. Farfetch'd and Ledion are Baton Pass users. There's not much to say beyond that. They only fit into Baton Pass, which is an inconsistent playstyle. And C-tier. Arbok sucks. Watch my video on it from last week. Oh yeah, Aridos, that's who it is. Aridos is not guaranteed on Baton Pass, and Baton Pass is niche, so it's C-tier. Azumarill sucks ass, use a different water. Azumarill lets in a lot of stuff, and is passive and bad. Cubone is a bad Baton Pass recipient. Ghastly is a bad matchup fish. Pidgeot is worse than other normals. Noctowl could probably be in B minus, in all honesty, but it's just way too inconsistent. I'm actually going to make a video on Noctowl this month, probably. I want to talk about this one. Yeah, Noctowl has good special defense and all, but its added weaknesses are really annoying. It's just kind of unfortunate. And lastly, Poliwhirl is, I don't know, just use Kingler over this garbage. Poliwhirl is really bad. I don't like it at all. And that's my thoughts on everything. I kind of skimmed through the lower mons because what do you want me to say about them? I hope this was informative and I explained myself well enough. I've been ranting for an hour, so I need to go do something else. So see you, bye.